Resistance to tyrants is obedience to God.
Why is this focused in the South? Why 3 months? I think you kind of answered the focus area because you created a foreign country for this training. Why the location and timing on this?
Well, the timing itself basically has to do with the rotation of forces. As I've said, after 14 years of combat, we're still engaged in combat. We have a heavy op tempo as it is. So it comes to the availability of the units. We've had some units have to back out because of real-world missions. So that's where the timing comes into play. This was the best time possible to conduct the exercise. And again, it comes to challenging terrain and exposing our guys to different environments. And we've seen that. The long distances offered here in Texas are exactly what we're looking for to push our guys to the limits.
Thank you.
Are you going to actively include the local police and sheriff departments in your activities? I'm hearing that you're going to be gaining information, and what kind of information, and are you going to use our local people to help with that?
So we're not training any type of law enforcement during this training exercise. It's not happening. The only coordination now that will take place is we're just letting them know, hey, here's what happened last 24 hours, here's what's happening next 24 hours, so they can maintain situational awareness and just make sure that we're living up to the memorandum of agreement, memorandum of understanding that has occurred with the municipality.
Very good question. How will it affect our routine daily lives?
First and foremost, we're truly invested in everybody's personal rights and their privacy. That's what we live for. We live to support the Constitution of the United States, and that's what everybody wants to live by. And that's what we're here to do. So,
will any part of this exercise be martial law? And is anybody getting paid, including the police or any elected officials?
Okay, the first part of the question, Your Honor, no, it has nothing to do with martial law, period. We are Title 10 forces, not Title 32, nothing like that. No martial law in any way, shape, or form. We basically simply want to train the United States Special Operations Forces for future operations overseas. That's it. That's where we operate daily. Even right now, while we're all standing there, there are guys putting everything they've got into it against an enemy that is very determined to rid us off of this planet.
And what's that? Anybody getting paid?
No, no one's getting paid, Your Honor. They volunteered the land, and no one in the municipality, no one in the law enforcement either.
All right.
Carl, did you explain Title 10, Title 32, and those two?
They are the Army National Guard, Title 10 forces, or your active duty forces. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Now, my statement is, I've been a Green Beret for the last 26 years with 10 Special Forces. I do know the USAC commander and the USAC commander very well. 3 Sergeant Charles Cleveland and a 2-star Darcy Rogers. And I'm here to tell you, from my experience in combat with them, these 2 men cannot be trusted. When they tell you something, you take it with a grain of salt. And when you go back to Fort Bragg and you do your debrief, you let Charles Cleveland know, my name is Keith Helper. He'll remember me because he knows exactly what he did and he knows I know. And I will do everything in my power to let this community know these 2 men cannot be trusted.
Thank you, Mr. Helper. The gentleman in the t-shirt, white riding on the front, but I have a question here from, if you'll get the microphone, and you'll be next. I have a question here from downstairs. Explain the title Jade Helm 15 logo. What does that mean?
The logo?
What is Jade Helm 15? Is it an acronym? Is it
No, it is not an acronym.
code words?
Right. No, there's no code words with it. Somebody made an acronym for it. They were very creative in their thought process on alternative media to come up with that. Very creative indeed. Bottom line, this is a joint DoD recognized exercise. So any training exercise that is recognized at the DoD Pentagon level has to have a training exercise name associated with it. Jade Helm has no special significance whatsoever. period. Much like any other training exercise or operation, you name them as a point of reference. So that way when somebody comes into my office and starts talking about Jade Helm, I know exactly what they're talking about. It's an index.
The follow-up question there is, what about that strange image in the center where the sword and arrows cross? Who brings that up?
Okay, so the arrows, the crossed arrows, as some people out here are from the Special Forces community, that is the branch insignia for Special Forces. The dagger going back through there is the commando dagger from World War II. The clog in there is a Danish clog that goes back to World War II up in Holland, Norway, and the like during the occupied days. People who were in the resistance threw their sabots, their shoes, into machinery, and the machinery would break. Hence, sabotage came from that activity. And that's one of the things that Special Forces do in an unconventional warfare environment with the people that you're trying to link up with. So it's traced back to those times of World War II.
And one more thing on the logo. Who made up the subtitle Master of the Human Domain, and what does that mean?
So Master of the Human Domain is a construct that we operate in. It's actually the human domain. It's recognized at the Army level, and what that is there is no longer a linear battlefield after 14 years. So if you think that there's going to be another great war where it's the Allies against the Axis, or even the American-led efforts against the North Koreans and the Chinese, that's just not how warfare is conducted anymore. It's asymmetric in nature. And what is at the root or vied for by the enemy is the human populace. You have a gentleman in the Middle East, we'll call him Abdullah Halik. Okay, so Abdullah Halik is able to provide you food when you can't get food. He's able to get you clean water when you can't get clean water. He's able to start up a school in your local community. And then one day, Abdullah Halik comes to you and says, hey, would you mind hiding this anti-aircraft missile for me? He's never asked that population for anything before, but he has only provided. He has worked the human domain. They take the anti-aircraft missile and they hide it for him. It is population centered. How do we counter his credibility, his influence that he has when we come in and we move into an area for 3 days, 4 days at a time? How can you instantly pick that apart and figure it out? That is the human domain that we operate in.
I appreciate that explanation. Very well done.
My name is Sandy Churchill, and I live in Roseanne. You've stated that the FBI and DHS is involved.
Not DHS, no.
And other agencies.
The State Department.
Right. Is FEMA going to be involved?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Henry.
I'm Darrell Hanna from Cedar Creek. Brought my favorite book with me, this Hunter Ridge Dictionary. And my question is, I want you to address receiving this and cutting it out and not bring it back by any other name that your strategist may find in this dictionary that has anything to say that it is a preparation for martial law.
Yes, because it is not a preparation for martial law, sir.
That's what you say. Thank you. And thank you for that succinct answer.
My name is Bobby Joe Wells, Precinct 2009, Bastrop County. Colonel, you said that this is a training military exercise, and this training entails unconventional warfare, which is guerrilla warfare training, which includes PSYOPs, psychological operations, which is a weapon. Psychological warfare is a weapon. And it appears that the PSYOPs are taking place right now. And psychological operations, being psychological warfare, that would be a weapon being used against citizens if you're talking about believing in, obtaining information, and all that sort of stuff. How do you respond to that, sir?
One, there's not a PSYOP campaign going on associated with that. This is an information brief. And that has nothing to do with private citizens in Bastrop County. So I wish you'd clarify the question because it sounded more like a statement in the end.
The question is psychological operations, is it considered psychological warfare? Is it considered weaponry in your Army training?
No, it's an operation. It's a line of operation, or a correction, a line of effort at that point, not an operation. It's just the way that the effects are masked differently. So I'm not going to get into this.
Okay, well, what I'm talking about is intelligence gathering, on citizens.
That's not going to occur with this training exercise.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I'm glad we got to that question. Others had asked that, how much intelligence gathering will take place from the public or from the private sector? And the answer is
none.
None. Thank you. Another question from downstairs has to do with, and I appreciate Commissioner Pena's perspective on military history. Their comment is that the last time they remember something like this had to do with World War II, and they even talk about rounding up Japanese Americans and interring them in camps. Will Jade Helm infringe on anybody's personal civil rights?
No, we're here to preserve that. Again, that's what we've taken an oath to for, the Constitution.
So did the
It
president.
spans administrations, and the institution has been around for 240 years. We're here to protect all people. Those who cannot protect themselves, those who can, young, old, no matter race, religion, creed, anything like that. That's what your Army does for you. And that's why we all wear the same name tag, U.S. Army.
Are you planning on detaining or rounding up any American citizens?
No, that's against the law.
And are you planning on knocking on any citizens' doors?
No, we shouldn't have to. Now, let me caveat that with some RTs.
And he said all private
So we would give proper notification. Okay? So if you wouldn't mind, we would give proper notification. In this case, with this RMT, we don't have to go knock door to door. If we're in a more built-up area where there were more neighbors, I would go with a local law enforcement officer and go knock door to door and say, hey, during this period of darkness, there may be a helicopter that comes in over this field over here. Those are the only time we go knock door to door, and that's to put out information. And we do that in conjunction with a local law enforcement officer. That will not occur or should not have to occur here in Bastrop. If it does, then we come back to the county courts.
Thank you for that explanation. Yes, sir.
My name's Rod Stewart, U.S. Army veteran.
Thank you.
The question I have, and I just need to be clear on this. Now, you're going to have plainclothes people that are going to be blending in, right?
On private property.
On private property. You got a bunch of people out there that they're acting like they don't know and they're blending in or something, or?
It's part of the AAR process. So you're in the military.
Yeah.
They go back and they come in and say, hey, look, you did X, Y, and Z okay, but you didn't blend in well. Why didn't you blend in well? You've known that you would have to go do this for a couple of months. You should have studied the area, say Eastern Europe, and look at how they dress and take in their mannerisms. And you should have prepared for that.
Okay, so you can guarantee us that I won't have to worry about the guy standing next to me being some kind of covert operation guy gathering information that they'll come in later to pick everybody up?
No.
Okay.
Beers around the fire.
Thank you for your question. The gentleman here in the second row, the black shirt. Sir. Yes, sir.
Everybody really, truly wants this to be something that it's not, and they're not embracing it. They really want this to be a greater conspiracy. And in reality, all we want to do is make sure that our guys are trained for combat overseas. That's it.
The same kind of excuses Hitler used to take hold of Germany, too.
My name is James Gillum. I'm a district director with the Texas Nationalist Movement. I'm also a former veteran. I want to thank you for your service, Colonel. My question has to do, you mentioned earlier upholding the Constitution, which is also the oath that I took. That being said, the Constitution calls for the defense of the United States. wouldn't the money be better spent that is being used on Jade Helm, since it's in such a wide area that you're doing, you know, Texas, Arizona, Utah?
Florida, California.
Wouldn't that be better spent defending the southern border of the United States?
Yeah.
Is above his pay
I was gonna
grade.
say
So
that.
I won't ask him to answer that, but thank you for your, I want to submit.
Here, answer the question.
It's a matter of national policy, so you should take it to the national level leadership you're concerned with.
It's not a question to be asked at this operation. Ms. Sue Long.
My name is Daniel Duclue, and I'm a resident of Bastrop, Texas. I grew up here and got a rich family military history, so thank you for your service. You said the Department of Homeland Security was not involved. However, they are a cabinet position. It's under the jurisdiction of the president, and you are also under the jurisdiction of the president. So under the Bush administration, there's a document created, which is part of a bigger idea, but it was called Right-Wing Extremism, Current Economic and Political Climate Fueling Resurgent and Radicalization and Recruitment. And I won't get too much into that. However, it talks about gun owners, Christians, veterans, people that believe in the Constitution. In fact, when I look around in this room, a lot of people that are represented in this room are in that document. And so it seems to me that it's maybe kind of a slight conflict of interest that the government would be here in Texas in a place where people believe in the Constitution, where there are a lot of Christians, and if you're not a Christian, you're still allowed to practice your religion, and we respect that. And a lot of people that are proud to be gun owners. And so to see a big military buildup here, to me, I think those kind of people that pay attention and look at the documents the government puts out on right-wing extremism under the Bush administration, but we've got a new president that, I'm not going to go any further on that. But so I'm curious, and I'm no George Bush fan, but I'm curious. You said that the Department of Homeland Security wasn't directly involved in this. Are you aware of that document, the right-wing extremism?
No, you'd have to, one, take up the issue that you have with the Department of Homeland Security on that.
Okay.
Two, when you say, hey, we're all in that category, that really does actually template across, I'd say, 90% of the military, regardless of service. And I again have...
So do you find it kind of offensive that the government would potentially label you as a terrorist, sir?
Mr. Blue, that's enough.
Okay, and also, according to Mike over here, he was talking about representation, Mr. Poppy. I voted for you, sir, and I respect you. And the people of Bastrop do not want this.
We have lots of other...
Okay.
Come out to the gentleman in the red shirt right here, I think.
My name is Tom Watts. I'm a vet. And I have a question. Who's the suit?
Introduced at the beginning of the meeting, Tom.
Well, his name was given, but not what he does or who he is.
He is in charge of
The operation planner and exercise designer.
All right. One thing I'd like to say about special ops, I spent 20 plus years as a super spook. You know what that is, don't you? If this gets noisy, it's going to be because they did something wrong. It's not their job to be noisy. But I do have another question. You brought up the fact that you believe in supporting the Constitution. Why aren't you doing this job in Washington, D.C., where they don't believe in the Constitution instead of here?
I've been in the Army 27 years. This is my passion. This is the way that I serve my country.
Thank you.
Gentleman right here, please.
Hi, James Dimitri, KUT News. You mentioned that the FBI and other state departments are going to participate in this practice, and I was wondering if you could give me an example of what specifically they're going to be doing. You mentioned that they used to gather evidence in the field. Well, this is not Iraq or Afghanistan, so what sort of evidence will you be looking for or training them to search for here?
So again, with the State Department, it's all about nation building. So we want to make sure that, hey, with the role players that are there representing the forces that we would interact with overseas, what do they need for to establish their government or solidify their government, or do they need something from an offshoot of the State Department, USAID? Okay, maybe there's a medical emergency or a crisis that we don't know about, and then we go back and we feed it back up through the communications chain, and it makes sure that it gets to the right person at the higher headquarters who's representing the State Department or USAID. Vice versa, I said there would be a representative from the FBI working at a higher headquarters on a federal installation in support of this exercise. He will be looking at some of the message traffic that comes back up, and with one of the role players, he may ask, hey, you know, it could be just an inject, and an inject is something that will drive the exercise. They may come back and say, hey, this guy who you've identified as Clark Gerkenstein, okay? We really don't think he's Clark Gerkenstein. We think he's Helmut Pohl. And it just drives the exercise. That's it. That's all they're doing. Making sure that we're training up and down.
So they would only be used for...
You have a follow-up question?
Yes. So they would only be used in a scenario if you're not actually to gather any sort of...
And they won't even be here.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Blake, if you'll bring the mic back to this side of the room, to the gentleman in the here. We have some other questions that we'll get to. And one is a question for me. Why weren't you prepared for this huge turnout? This is a great country we live in, and social media has added a whole new level of citizen involvement. Frankly, I am pleasantly surprised to see the public input here and the public interest here. I think I sense that as being a thing that's good for America, good for democracy, and should we ever do this again, we'll know to have this over at the convention center. Just didn't expect quite this much response. But thank you for being here, and we're trying to accommodate, make everybody as comfortable as possible. I have a couple more here, and then we'll get to this gentleman. So you talked about terrain and distances. Why are you not utilizing on-base sites for these kinds of things? And the last question is for me. Why was the public not allowed to vote on this? We've talked about that. Why is it so important to do this off-base?
Again, if the realistic military training takes place off the federal installation, we know those installations like the axe of our hands. It's really getting out there and exposing them to new terrain that they're not familiar with, to include even the road networks that they may have to travel from one point in Texas to another point in Texas.
Language. How do you reconcile this with the training videos of U.S. Marines training for riot control involving sovereign citizens? Is there anything there?
One, I'm not aware of that training. I can speak for United States Army Special Operations Command, so to ask me a question about the Marine Corps and then for me to answer would be irresponsible at best.
But you're not training the Army in riot control involving sovereign citizens?
No, sir, we're not.
Yes, sir. Like the gentleman behind the camera.
Oh, thank you. And this gentleman has had his hand up for a long time, so if it would please the court, maybe he can talk next. First of all, sir, could I have you two gentlemen, just for my camera?
What's your name, sir?
Oh, sorry, my name is Chikari Jackson, Infowars.com. Thank you. Anyway, for the two gentlemen, can you guys, just for the camera, state your names and positions again?
I'll state my name. I'm the spokesman for United States Army Special Operations Command. I'm the guy giving the brief.
Yes, sir.
I'm Lieutenant Colonel Mark Lasatoria. I'm the Director of Public Affairs, United States Army Special Operations Command, Fort Bragg, North Carolina.
Okay. Now we're talking about role players, and you mentioned role players. So I'm curious as to how you guys came about these role players, and also will there be any drills to round up and/or detain the role players?
As far as the role players go, they are going to be service members, and if there's an incident like that, it's going to be within the scope of the exercise for unconventional warfare for future operations overseas.
Well, will anybody be detained or rounded up in the
It's
exercise?
possible. It's for future operations overseas. So in the Convention of Unconventional Warfare, all right, there could be a point where it goes kinetic. So, and then you have to execute actions on the objective.
Well, I guess we keep coming back to the same question: how are these guys going to blend in overseas? I mean, and at night.
It all starts from the basics. Okay, we don't just go and say run. You got to crawl, you got to walk, and then you're running. So to start blending in, and we do it back here. We start picking up things that will apply later on. Hey, I do need to pay attention to certain types of shoes. These aren't available over here. And like I said before, and people were disagreeing with me, they dress differently in Fayetteville, North Carolina. They just do. It's bizarre.
My name is Darrell Bartley. I live here in Bastrop. And I know with any kind of operation, you said this is a joint exercise. Of course, that's going to take some time to ramp up if you're going to be ready to perform these exercises for 2 months. How come we weren't informed on the ramp up time? Are you here now, ramping up, getting ready? People are coming in.
I think you've answered that question.
And, well, we've also noticed along the hostile territories as depicted in your map, some UN trucks, vehicles with UN on it. Are they involved?
No. If those trucks do exist, they have nothing to do with Jade Helm. Training exercise, Jade Helm, or United States.
DHS, FEMA, or UN is not involved in this?
Yeah, or even the Walmart closings have nothing to do with this.
Like, if you'll come back over here.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Terry Wareham. I'm a Bastrop County resident. I'm also with the Bastrop County Tea Party. I was here at the meeting on January 26th when I heard Mr. Mead's presentation. And I've also been doing some additional research. And I'm kind of hearing some discrepancies in what's going on from there, what I've heard in some other presentations that he's done. First of all, if private landowners came to the military and invited them on their property, why do we need to have this type of a presentation? Why do we need to have the invitation from the Commissioners Court and also from like the City of Smithville Council? Why do we need that? Also, we were told this was unconventional training. Mr. Mead gave the analogy that this would be like the French resistance during World War II, where the French resisted against the German occupation. Well, what you're saying today doesn't quite make sense. If you've got 60 people coming to private property, I don't understand what this big, what the big deal is all about then.
Your question is where now?
If you're training on private property, why do you need to have the invitation from the Commissioner's Court?
It's notification for the coordination, make sure that it's done safely for everybody involved. And the MOU, MOA, again, goes back for whatever reason we may damage a bridge or something to that nature. It's a dual concurrence. That's all it is. Now, going back to the your culture, your analogy. Why 60 people? Okay, first there's that side.
Mr. Mead's analogy.
Right, and it's a legitimate analogy. It's a historic case. The French resistance were aided by the precursor to United States Army Special Forces, which was the OSS. They helped them, they supplied them, they made sure they were able to talk on radios and communicate with their forces. You're asking 60, it just doesn't seem right. Some of those people are exercise support to make sure that, hey, nothing's going to go wrong, and role players. And then there will be one ODA, an A-team. Some people refer to them as A-team. That's the popular connotation of it. I can tell you, and everybody wants to do their research on it, and there are SF veterans out here, that 12-man element is just practicing their skills that they need to operate overseas. When they go overseas, they have the capability and the capacity to build up from school teachers, clerks, a 650-man force to go work overseas and take care of things that are in our national interest. So that's what 12 men do. We're training small groups, but really the larger part of this exercise is the communication back and forth on this from the higher headquarters to make sure that it's a push-pull.
But it's on private property.
Correct.
So I don't understand. Yeah, who are you blending with then if you're on private property?
We have the role players, and it'll be done on private property.
Military personnel, while they are involved in this training on private property, subject to local and state laws and regulations. Answer is yes.
So if we go speeding down the road, we're going to get into it. Yes, you will.
Hi, my name is Mark Harris. I'm a resident of Bastrop. I'm also a former military special operations soldier. Colonel, appreciate you being here today to present the Army's position. Not everybody's comfortable with that, but there are many of us in the community that are here to be supportive in any way that we can to ensure that these soldiers are trained. Trained soldiers save lives, not only foreign people, but U.S. citizens themselves. The more soldier trains in more adverse conditions, the more terrain that you can experience will better equip them to deal with whatever they're going to encounter when they get somewhere. We have in the past asked the Germans, the Koreans, South Americans to be supportive of our training. Tens of thousands of troops going into Europe for reforging. We were dealing with mission warfare. We've evolved.
Let's get to the question.
So my question would be, what examples can we look to from past operations in the U.S. and out that might serve as models for the citizens to get better informed through a non-tainted view, right? So a objective view.
And some of those are as simple as just an airfield seizure. So there are a lot of paratroopers at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. There's a whole division of the 82nd right there. They constantly practice airfield seizure. Airfield seizure was a mission essential task both in Panama and Grenada. And that's a perfect example for people to see why training nonstop has to occur. So as they trained at Fort Bragg, they started looking at other places where they could train off post as well to get exposure to new terrain, new airfields, and just add a new level of experience before they go into combat.
The lady right beside you there, Blake, but let me ask a couple of these from downstairs. And again, I appreciate the folks down there for their participation. Will any of this exercise have anything to do with Agenda 21?
I'm not familiar with what Agenda 21 is.
Good. What is the highest level of the government, the federal government, that approved this operation?
Okay, so it's approved at the local level. Some people, may have called their congressman and found out, my congressman doesn't know about training exercise Jade Helm. In the R&T process, there are 3 levels, level 1, 2, and 3. Level 3 requires congressional notification. Jade Helm is predominantly a level 1. In some places where a helicopter may come in a certain period of darkness, moves it up to a level 2. So then on top of it, people may have called their congressman and they still didn't know anything about Jade Helm. Not every congressman sits on every committee. All right, not every committee represents Special Operations Command. It comes down to that. Now we have a coordination with the governor's office, and we've also made coordination with the Border Patrol as well, because they had some concerns, and we just said, here's a scheme of maneuver, and we just wanted to make sure we weren't crossing paths at all. And we had another unfortunate incident like we did about 8 years ago.
All right. Thank you. If you'll get the microphone to the gentleman. I'm sorry, you first, and then the gentleman in the gray shirt behind you. Yes, ma'am.
Hi there.
major question because I'm Melinda Ham and I live here in Bastrop. As you said, there's a lot of activity on social media with this, and not all of it's true. And so my question is, I've seen that this Jade Helm event is happening in many other states. I was wondering if you could clarify how many states are being affected by this and what other counties are being affected in Texas.
I don't have the list of counties with me. The other states are Arizona, New Mexico, Mississippi, Louisiana, Florida, and Utah. Thank you. So the extent of things occurring in Florida will happen on Eglin Air Force Base federal installation. The extent of things happening in Louisiana will be on Camp Mississippi's Camp Shelby. Louisiana is Camp Beauregard. And then here in Texas, and then on military installations in the other states that I mentioned.
Are we the only ones that are being held on private property?
Utah and Utah
And Bastrop County are the only.
No, the other counties in Texas as well. I don't have that list.
Do we have an idea?
The hostile one. I think it's up to 12.
So there's 12.
It's on private land.
Thank you for your question. The gentleman right back there in the t-shirt. So, are you kamikaze? Kamikaze hat? So, does that act prohibit the operation that you're going to be conducting here on private property? Should that be required to be on a military basis?
No, because we're not doing any type of law enforcement. We're just training for operations overseas.
Good. Yes, sir.
Yes, my name is Theodore Zuniga, and thank you so much for being here. This is awesome. I'm so glad I've gotten to be a part of this, and thank you for your service. Thank you for being here. I would like to ask, this is really the only thing I'm wondering. Let's say during the training, which is happening on private property, first of all, there's a lot of people in Bastrop, or maybe not a lot, but there are people in Bastrop who are very against Jade Helm. And there's some people who are for it. I am just here to figure out what would happen if someone who is radically against Jade Helm, what would happen if there is an altercation between them and the training? They get on the training land, some kind of altercation happens, I'm not sure what it is. What is y'all's process for dealing with that altercation? And what happens does it go directly to the local police department? Or is that something y'all handle? And what happens because of that? What are the repercussions for that? Is there a total shutdown of that property? Is there a shutdown of the surrounding properties? Is there a shutdown of our county? What is y'all's repercussions and what is y'all's way of handling an altercation if one was to happen?
The short answer on that is, one, I would find it bizarre that someone would want to violate someone else's private property to make a statement when everybody's concerned about their own private and individual rights. But we'll go with the scenario. We would call local law enforcement at that point in time. It's a law enforcement issue at that point in time.
And are there already plans and have y'all already drawn out, okay, if this was to happen, just to be ready, if this was to happen, do you already have some kind of plan as far as what chain of command that process would go through and what y'all would do in order to mitigate that circumstance?
The short answer is we do, yes.
Thank you. The lady right in front of you, Blake, she'll be next, but will drones be used in any way during this exercise?
Yes, sir.
Will there be any roadblocks that would impede the general public from driving up and down the county or state roads during this exercise?
No.
None. All right.
If there were, we'd have to coordinate with you.
Yes, sir.
That's why there aren't any.
Thank you.
We want to keep the roads open.
Exactly. Your question, ma'am, if you'd stand and state your name and ask your question.
My name is Vivian Watling. Can you tell us how many pieces of private property are involved in this exercise and how you're going to transport your personnel betwixt and between these properties?
So it's, again, 12 counties, a significant amount of private land associated with with that. I don't have an exact number for you. We can take your name, number, we can get it back.
Here at Bastrop County.
It could be up to as many as 15 private landowners here in Bastrop County. Moving in between, exercise support to make sure that we have water for those guys. Prime movers, it's 2 Humvees. To move people in between, as necessary, we will have rental vehicles. Also, one of the things is working with the private landowner. The private landowner may have a piece of non-standard equipment, say like a cattle truck, and he may move somebody on a cattle truck from point A to point B, much like you'd find in Europe. They move people from point A to point B on non-standard vehicles.
Thank you. Thank you, gentleman over here in the red colored shirt. You've already answered how many troops will be involved. Where will these troops, or how will these troops be housed?
Okay, so the ones working out on the private land, they will stay on the private land. Some people for coming in as specific role players or for exercise support will stay in hotels here in the community.
Does the housing of these troops in any part of the Jade Helm 15 military training exercise have anything to do with recent Walmart closings anywhere in America?
No, it was, again, everybody wants this to be something that it's not, and they'd like to pin everything on Jade Helm that happens. An extra minute's worth of research quickly figures out that the closing of the Walmarts was due to labor disputes. So they
not everywhere.
At certain Walmarts, and it's just easier to say no, it's really Jade Helm.
That brings me to this question. Are you aware that Army helicopters have already been flying over property in Bastrop County? I understand that these ops aren't supposed to start until July 15. So is there any correlation between the fact that with military training bases here and has been here for a long, long time, and the fact that every now and then 2 or 3 choppers will fly over in formation, moving from one part of Texas to the other? Is this a part of the Jade Helm at all?
No, sir, it's not. It has nothing to do with Jade Helm. That includes, I think there was a concern of jet aircraft as well.
I want the public to know that we have supported military training here in Bastrop County for a long time. We're the home to the largest National Guard training facility in the state of Texas. Tens of thousands of men and women come here every year to train at Camp Swift. We're going to continue to see military training. There are going to be people walking up and down our streets in fatigues, eating in our restaurants, buying gas at our stores. They have nothing to do with Jade Helm. So let's be respectful of that and not overplay this and make it something that it really isn't. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. Can I add on to that real quick? There are some cases out there where concerned citizens are just walking up to National Guardsmen and harassing them about Jade Helm. If they're not in Army Special Operations Command, they're not going to know about Jade Helm. They're just doing their job. And that goes to airmen, Marines, and sailors as well. And people are going into recruiting stations, and they're not going to know about Jade Helm. They're not in Army Special Operations Command.
Well, and I'm just asking all the citizens of Bastrop County to show the respect that you always show to our military men and women who come here to train.
Dave Eckert, I'm a retired Army Major, and I appreciate the explanation you've been given because it's alleviating a lot of our concerns. My primary focus is safety of the civilians, so I have a few more questions, quick ones. Will there be observer controllers with each of the teams out in the field?
Yes.
Okay, and my understanding from what you say is that there will be no training events that occur in the town when they come in to resupply or get any support, correct?
In Bastrop, there will not be, none of them will be in city limits whatsoever.
Will there be any type of events in towns, other places in Texas?
On private property.
Just on private property?
Private property.
Okay. I'm assuming that there's going to be an op or opposing force.
We just have the role players that are a part of it. So some of the role players will put the injects in as necessary.
But there will be no in strange uniform op-4 on private property that want to go get a burger at lunch and come into town?
No, they won't be wearing a uniform to come into town to get a burger. Some weird looking uniform. They will be in, if they come in uniform, like I want to get a burger, I'll be in this uniform.
Okay, so there is, to alleviate, again, I'm sorry to double tap that, but there aren't going to be any type of events where someone drives up and there's a deputy sheriff and somebody as a guerrilla or somebody as a host nation forces wanting to check IDs on the public roads. Thank you very much.
Thank you. While you're there, I'd like to just move around to this gentleman and pull over. While he's doing that, let me ask this one. Well, actually, those are both been asked before. And wonderful questions from both this audience and the one downstairs. But I think we're getting now to where we're kind of rehashing, recovering some territory. Somebody asked if they could get a copy of the transcript of this meeting. The answer is yes. It'll be part of the public record. It'd be a little bit expensive to do that, but you're certainly welcome to ask for that through the Open Records Act, and it will be available through our clerk's office, who is the official record keeper of county business. Your question, your statement question, sir.
Mr. Chairperson, members of the commission, my name is John Dietz. I've practiced law about 25 years. My primary residence is outside the United States now, in large part, because I'm sad to say we've become a police state, and I feel freer in a separate country than I do in my own country anymore. My question, and I do appreciate your service, and I have no question taking note of most of the folks who are serving in the military like you're very honorable. But we cannot deny the fact that there's been this rendition program when our own government, with honorable people like you, with sworn oaths, have engaged in horrific, embarrassing, for probably everyone in this room, kidnapping foreign citizens in foreign countries and taking them places for torture. There's one individual from Germany and stuff that got taken to Slovenia or Slovakia for 3 weeks and was tortured horribly and let go on a street in Eastern Europe, only to return to Germany and say, hey, you got the wrong guy.
Let's focus on Jade Helm and your question here.
Yes, sir. My question is, why is it not reasonable? Look, these folks, you're not going to be traveling in rental cars or cattle trucks in Afghanistan or any other country. Why is it not reasonable for me as a private citizen who just questions things, maybe conspiracy theories, but somebody just has some reasonable questions? Why is it not reasonable for me to see this as absolute training for a domestic rendition program where eventually, worst case scenario, if things go bad, good folks like yourself with sworn oaths are going to go after Alex Jones, Joe Biggs, Jakari Jackson. Why is it not reasonable, sir, for me to be scared about that?
Good question. Let's let you answer that question.
So I'm not taking away that from you. That's your own belief, and you're entitled to it. But I've presented the facts as they are, and that's just how it is. You may not agree with them, and that's your right.
How Hitler started to take over Germany.
By the way, we're not here. I did not call this, and the court didn't agree to have this special meeting to convince anybody of anything. We're here to share information, and that's why we've conducted it in this way. You may go away from here believing just the same thing you believed when you came in, and that's your right as an American to do that. And part of this training is going to continue to defend your right as an American to do that. The gentleman on the second row there in front of you, Blake, if you would.
Judge, it's your obligation to understand how these people feel. And this is a one-sided conversation. It's nothing but questions, and nobody gets to make a statement about what it appears to be to us. So that might be necessary.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Your name and your question.
My name's Rod Stewart. I had a question a while ago.
Rod, I didn't realize you were asking a second question. A lot of people here haven't had a chance to ask one.
Okay.
If you don't mind, please, let's go ahead and pass the mic over to the gentleman in the blue and red shirt there. There are several who haven't had a chance to ask one question. Rod, thank you. Stand up, please, and state your name.
My name is Pat LaPalma. If asked to confiscate guns, what would you do?
Well, it's not part of the training exercise whatsoever, so it's not going to happen.
Yeah. So if you're ordered to confiscate guns, you wouldn't do it, right?
We're talking hypotheticals. You can ask me as a private citizen.
What would you do?
Okay, I'm here representing the United States Army Special Operations Command. I'm not in a private capacity. So if you see me on the street someday, ask me that question. I'll answer as a private citizen.
And I think he stated clearly he was not a part of this military training exercise. So the answer is he won't be asked anything. The mic, please take it to the back of the room. The young lady who's been so patient and holding up her hand. Thank you.
Gigi Berger, Lee County. Will you put any notices out to the people in neighboring counties when it actually gets ready to go live?
We understand that there are shared borders within the counties, so the immediate advisories, the notification, even with local law enforcement, to an county that abuts here at Bastrop, that will occur as well.
So sheriff, police department, is that what we're talking about?
And media advisory as well.
Okay, well, no, that's. Second question, going dark, what does that mean when it's dark? Are you guys actually going to be completely dark, or?
When I said we're operating in a period of darkness,
yes, sir.
That just means nightfall.
Okay, but you won't be actually having any cutting any power, right?
No, it just means, it's how we refer to nightfall. We just keep track of time that way. Period of darkness, number 1, 2, 3.
Okay. And cyber operations, is there any cyber security in this particular exercise?
Not here in Bastrop, in a notional sense only. There will be some cyber injects, but they're all notional. It's not on a network.
And one more question that is on these documents, is this for World War III?
No, and I've heard that before. I've heard a lot of things. This has,
Okay, thank you.
The young lady was from Lee County. Well, Lee County, are any of these operations or military exercises being conducted in Lee County?
Lee County,
How about Fayette County? How about Caldwell County? How about Travis County? And how about Williamson? Okay. That's all. Those are the 5 counties that surround us. Blake, if you'll move toward the center here. The gentleman sitting there on the second from back row, we'll ask him to stand, say his name and give his question, and then we'll take care of the others who are right there in that same area. Thank you.
My name is Bob Gibson. I live in Cedar Creek. With all the comments being made here this morning, and to the judge and to the colonel, I thank you for your service, but do you understand why the citizenry doesn't trust our federal government?
I understand that the people that have spoken that way here have those concerns, and I appreciate your opinion on that. But again, United States Army, 240 years. I've worn this uniform across 5 different administrations for 27 years. And, if I were still a younger man, I'd wear it for another 27 more.
Someone else in the middle there have their hand up. Please state your name and ask your question.
How you doing? My name is PJ Smith, former AFSOC CCT. I just had a question. During the RMTs that you've been conducting, how many civilians have actually been injured, if at all, and what are those numbers in the 25 years?
Yeah, so we discussed that earlier. There was the one fatality during Operation Robin Sage back in North Carolina.
But not a civilian.
Not a civilian. Not a
So the
civilian.
answer is 0. There's a gentleman there with a camera and also his hand up, so get the mic over to him if you would, Blake. Thank you. Yes, sir. State your
Hi,
name.
my name is Colin Wright. I appreciate your service. My question is, do you really expect the strategies and tactics of blending in with the people of Bastrop, Texas, and the coordination with county law enforcement to apply overseas?
Sir, it's a starting point. Again, we crawl, we walk, we run when we train. So you start here, we train, and we learn some things. And then when we go somewhere else, we learn some more things. It all really builds upon itself.
Okay, is there a reason why you're starting here?
We just look for, one, that land is volunteer. So it all starts by private citizens coming forward and saying, hey, not only do I support the military in my word, I'm going to support it in my deed. So from there, word of mouth travels, other people want to volunteer land, and you're able to put together a training scenario that works as a template for overseas operations.
Thank you very much, Blake. There's a gentleman on the second row forward there in the green shirt. If you hand him the microphone, he's got his hand up. State your name, sir.
Yes, my name is Dean Brown. I live here in Bastrop. Many of us, our neighbors here, went through a very traumatic experience with the fires. several of us are still not over that psychologically, and we know our neighborhoods are not over that. Why would we want to subject us to this level of anxiety on the heels of that kind of catastrophic event?
That's a very good question, and I have to tell you that part of that is the blame for that would be laid on me. I did not anticipate any anxiety from the public of Bastrop County regarding this realistic military training. When the program was explained to me, as it's been explained to you today, it sounded to me like a great idea and something that we should support because we understand the value of training and we train people here. This is a big part of our economy. Many people live in Bastrop County today because they came here as a part of the Bastrop Air Force Base. They liked it here. They stayed here. They retired here, bought land and lived and raised their families here. I honestly had no idea that there would be this kind of public concern about it. Again, I'm naive about social media. I didn't know that it was such a powerful tool in sharing information. It's also a powerful tool in sharing misinformation. And so a lot of what we're seeing here today is a surprise to me, but it's part of the public process, it's part of the democratic process, and I'm very glad that we're doing this. But again, the information has been shared. Answers have been given honestly, clearly, succinctly, and you take that and deal with it and make of it what you will. But if I, as your county judge, thought we were in one iota of a danger from this military training coming to Bastrop County, I would do all I could to put a stop to it. I do not feel that way. If your Commissioner's Court felt any angst at all about this, we would try to put a stop to it. That's not what we feel. And I'm being elaborating on this question because I think we've raised a really important issue. Bastrop County, many citizens of Bastrop County are still suffering and reeling from the disaster 3.5 years ago. We will live with that the rest of our lives, those of us who have lived in Bastrop County. But hopefully we cannot let that be a negative anchor in our lives. We're trying to move on as a county. We're doing all we can to be resilient and to bounce back from that and to be better. And I think in a lot of ways Bastrop County is. We support our military, we support training, and I just feel like this would be a good thing for Bastrop County because that's what we do. There's a young lady at the back there who has her hand up, and then the gentleman in the hat in the back. I really wish, just out of respect for the court, if not anybody else, if all of you who have hats on would remove them, please, while you're in the court. The young lady first, and then the gentleman in the back.
My name is Casey DeClue, and my question is more posed towards the Commissioner's Court. As citizens, since we are so disturbed by this training, is there anything that we can do to reverse this decision? Or,
We should be able to.
can we vote?
As a vote.
Do we need to protest? What can we do to have our voices heard?
Well, I think, Ms. DeClue, your voices have been heard today, and we thank you for that. I can't say what the court would do about it, but I know what I would do, and that is I would ask these gentlemen who have heard your concerns and who have given you answers about things that you've asked about to make this a part of their operation here in Bastrop County to be sure that none of the angst that has been expressed here today is justified, and that they come here and do their training and move in and move out, and we may never know they were here any more than you don't know when 400 or 500 or 1,000 troops come into Camp Swift military base for training. That happens every weekend and throughout the summer, all during the week. That doesn't worry us. That doesn't worry us. We have Humvees driving up and down the highways of Bastrop County all summer long. Some in convoys. No one worries about martial law or citizens arrest or any of those kinds of things under those circumstances. This training, as it's been explained to us, is simply an extension of the training that needs to happen so that our troops are safer and more effective all around the world. And I think that we have, I think we're in a good position here to provide this training. You have a follow-up question, Mr.
Thank you. So essentially what you're saying is this decision has been made and there's nothing that we can do as private citizens to reverse it?
The decision has been made, and I'm not going to say that there's nothing that would, I will say this. If the information that has been given to us in this meeting had been contradictory to what we had already been told about it, then it would be our responsibility as your Commissioners Court to do all we could, all within our power, to put a stop to it if we thought it was a threat to the citizens of Bastrop County or create any civil unrest or any risk to you. But the facts haven't changed.
Yes, but you all as public servants, when you see this much unrest, does it not disturb you that you're not representing your citizens' needs?
Of course, we are very in tune to our citizen concerns, and that's why we had this meeting, by the way, and that's why we asked people for their input. But we've heard your concerns, and we've heard their answers to your concerns, and I think we're ready to move forward with this.
I wanted to do something about it. I wanted to stop it.
Thank you, Mr. Flynn. I'm asking these
I
gentlemen
want to know
to...
the steps that we can take as citizens for it to stop.
Thank you. These gentlemen to take all of this into the milieu of their planning for this summer and to do all within their power to make sure that none of these fears and worries affect the citizens of Bastrop County. We do have a couple more questions. The gentleman who removed this cowboy hat, thank you for doing that. And the mic to him.
Yes, my name is Sean McAnally. I have a two-part question. I wonder, just a guesstimation, how many acres does the Army possess for training in the United States?
Sorry, I don't know.
Yeah, would you say millions, somewhere around there?
Again, the RMT process takes the troops off of federal installations and exposes them to new terrain.
Okay, because you said you know all of these trains like the back of your hand. That was a quote from earlier. I'm guessing your troops don't know all of these millions of acres like the back of their hands, so you could use those. Since you've already spent billions of our dollars, our tax dollars on those facilities, why go ahead and spend more billions on using private property?
Okay, one, it's not billions. Okay, so the economic impact here.
So the military doesn't spend billions of dollars.
That's an issue of national policy and the Defense Department. You should take it up to the appropriate level.
Thank you. Would you hand the mic to the young lady in the green blouse over here on the far side? She's had her hand up. And let me just say this, it's 1 o'clock. We're going to take maybe one or two more questions. I think we're at the point now that the questions are being repetitive and everyone has had an opportunity to let us know how they feel about this. We appreciate that. But we're going to, and I'm sure these gentlemen will stick around for a while if you want to talk to them individually. The court will stick around for a while. Might meet up with you over the Dairy Queen or something for a hamburger, but I think it's about time. Let's have this lady's comment and maybe one or two more, and then we will call. Yes, ma'am. Your name and your question.
Kathy Glass. Under our Texas Constitution, our Texas governor is Commander-in-Chief of the Texas military, State Guard, National Guard, Air National Guard. You said you coordinated with the governor's office. Did our governor approve this? And are any of our Texas military forces that I just mentioned going to participate or observe in this exercise? Thank you.
Okay, so with the participation in Texas forces,
No, there is no participation with Texas National Guard or...
other than
Texas
using the
State Guard.
installations that we've already mentioned. Regarding the governor, we do.
We have
coordinated with the governor's office.
And did he approve it? Or
There was no issue with it.
Okay, I'm going to interpret that as he approved it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Glass. While we're here, the gentleman in the brown shirt, and then the gentleman in the maroon colored shirt on this side.
Sir, I just would like to ask a question that...
Did you not ask one earlier?
No.
You did? I'm sorry.
And the feed cut out
Good.
during a question that I had, so I couldn't hear the answer.
Yes, ma'am. I think I know who you're what your question is, and I will get that. Yes, go ahead, sir.
This is just a clarification. My name is Ben Zuniga. I'm from Bastrop. I just wanted to clarify, will there be any role play done in the community in public? Because the reason I'm concerned is because you mentioned that there was a need to blend in with people from Bastrop.
It's going to take place on private property.
Well, how does that work? How does that work?
It works within the aspects of the role play, but what we're asking the soldiers to do. And it's being observed by the experts who are observing the exercise.
One follow-up question, will the people role-playing be dressed up as Bastropians?
Dressed in civilian clothing.
But we can't do that.
Thank you for your question. If you would bring the mic to the lady in the middle. I understand that there was a bit of a problem with the feed downstairs.
Right.
You missed part of an answer to a question. What was that question?
Yes.
Your name is what?
Volterine DeClaire, Texas, Travis County. I was wondering about the logo for Jade Helm. You addressed that briefly. I didn't catch all of the answer. In particular, I'm curious about the symbology of the small wooden shoe.
The clog.
The clog.
So,
Thank you.
yeah, so back in World War II, as part of the resistance against the German occupation Nazi forces, people from France, Holland, Netherlands, they would take off their shoes and throw them into the machinery, the war machinery that the Nazi occupation had overtaken. Those shoes were called sabots, French word for shoe, sabot. Hence, sabotage comes from that.
And what significance does this have to the operation?
It goes back to just the unconventional warfare, tracing back the lineage of U.S. Special Forces and how they helped the French resistance during World War II through the construct. It was an organization called OSS, Office of Strategic Support, or Strategic Services.
You have a follow-up question?
I do, thank you. Will the training exercise be focusing on playing both sides of the Sabot experience, the saboteur, the guerrilla warfare? Will the military be exercising and training in both those capacities, both helping insurgent populations?
It's just to help the insurgent populations overseas, or a group that's oppressed overseas.
And also being an invading army which is dealing with saboteurs, is that also not part of it? Like, well, I would think that's what's similar to what happens in Iraq and Afghanistan, countries which the U.S. has gone into and faced insurgent populations. So how do you see the role of sabotage being in that? Both sides, one side?
So for this exercise, it's truly just, it was just a symbol just to trace the lineage back on that unconventional warfare, tracing everything back to OSS back in World War II.
Yes, that's fine. Like if you'll take the mic over to this gentleman.
I get a bit long-winded.
Well, I understand. We're going to honor people's time here. The gentleman in the brown shirt there. Say your name, please.
My name is Alex May. Is it possible that training on private land or the goals and missions of Jade Helm are subject to change under an attack from a foreign land or under civil unrest?
If something goes down, the audience stick around.
I think the only thing that would stop Jade Helm, and we've discussed this, is a declaration of war, and we would have to mobilize the entire nation. So
that would not be part of the Jade Helm training exercise.
Is it possible to change?
Anything is possible. That would be a scenario that, anything is possible. To work with anything. Look, I think we've had a very useful public hearing today. A lot of information has been shared. Take this, mull it over, discuss it among yourselves, make up your own minds about it. But it's been a useful interchange of information, and I appreciate the way you've acted respectfully toward each other and toward our guests here today. There's no way for us to answer every question with a group of this size. We could be here till midnight and there'd still be questions being asked. So that's not going to be productive. I'm going to now adjourn the meeting, and thank you all again for coming. Meeting adjourned.
I'm not